When every day feels the same, it's easy to forget you're trapped. This is my nightly ritual again, the fire, the bourbon, and the kind of silence where I hear my thoughts a little too clearly or loudly. I stare into the flames, listen to them crack and spit, and replay everything that happened. And the only thought that won't let go of me is, how could I have believed that? I suppose I should have gone to a priest, but the truth is, I doubt any priest would want to hear all the things I've done. This fire, it's the only witness that doesn't look away. Before I tell you about the hardest period of my life, allow me to ask one thing. Please like the video and subscribe, but only if this confession truly resonates with you. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It means something to me, knowing who I'm opening my soul to tonight. I will not give names, there will be no cities, no countries, not because I'm afraid, and not because it isn't true, just because this is not a story about where it happened. It's a story about what stayed, and pain doesn't have coordinates. There were no clocks, no wristwatches, no phones, no numbers glowing on walls. You'd think it was some spiritual metaphor. Time doesn't matter. We live in the now. But no, it was much simpler. Clocks were forbidden. Time was discouraged. At first, I kept track by instinct. You wake, you eat, you clean, you sit in silence, you repeat. But I remember on my third or fourth day, I whispered to the guy next to me during dish duty. "Do you know what time it is?" He didn't even look up. He just said, "Why count what doesn't exist?" I laughed, quietly, but he wasn't joking. No one laughed. And I didn't ask again. There was sunlight and there was dark, that's all. Sunlight meant work, tasks, movement. Darkness meant silence, folding inward, resetting. Sometimes the clouds would hang all day, and it was hard to know if it was morning or evening. No one seemed to care. At first, I'd lie awake wondering what hour it was. Midnight, 2 a.m., 5? But eventually, that voice in my head, the one that asked, got tired of asking. Because there was no answer, and no one else seemed to need one. I started to let go of time like someone dropping coins in water. First the hours, then the days. There was one moment, I remember it vividly, when I realized I didn't know what month it was. And it didn't scare me, it calmed me. Because if there's no date, there's no deadline, no urgency, no disappointment. There's just now. And now is very quiet. I used to love my birthday, not in a loud way, just the idea of it, a marker. A moment when the world pauses to say, "You've made it, you're growing." But the first birthday I spent there, no one said a word, no glance, no nod, no candle or song. I waited all day for something, anything. By evening, it hit me. They didn't forget, they didn't care, because we didn't celebrate anything. Not holidays, not anniversaries, not even each other. I remember sitting on my mat that night, whispering to myself, maybe they just didn't know. But they did. The next day, during a reflection session, someone shared that they used to get sad on holidays. And one of the seniors said, "You've already been born, here. Everything else is just shadow." I realized that was it. We didn't need birthdays. We were all born the moment we entered the circle. Everything before that was irrelevant. Unnecessary, a distraction. The second year, I didn't even remember my birthday. Not until days later, maybe weeks, it came back to me like a name I hadn't said in years. And when it did, I felt nothing. No grief, no nostalgia, just a small shrug inside. That's when I knew something had changed, because even the days that used to belong to me didn't anymore. There was a notebook I used to carry before I arrived. I filled it with dreams, lists, thoughts, stupid things I wanted to do someday. One day, I opened it quietly, alone, just to look, just to remember. And the feeling that hit me wasn't warmth, it was guilt. Why did I need this? Why did I still carry it? It felt like a betrayal, like hiding a secret from someone I loved. So I burned it. Page by page, watched the ink curl into black threads and drift away. I told myself it was symbolic, that I was letting go, but deep down, I knew I was being watched. Not literally, but spiritually, and I wanted to be clean. There was a moment, I don't know when someone said something about next year, and the whole room went still. Not tense, not angry, just still. Like they'd used a word that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. I don't remember who said it, I just remember the reaction. One of the supervisors, they were never called that, but that's what they were, turned and asked, "Why would you assume you have a year?" The tone wasn't cruel. It was soft, like someone reminding a child not to touch something hot. He said, "Time is ego. You're trying to control what you haven't earned." And no one argued, because there was nothing to argue. That's what they were teaching us. Don't plan, don't dream, don't aim, just be here. Now, exactly as told, they had these little phrases, sayings that got repeated so often, they stuck to your thoughts like oil on glass. Don't project, receive. Future is hunger. Stillness begins where wanting ends. I used to scribble those lines in the corners of pages, like mantras. Not because I fully believed them yet, but because I wanted to, and slowly, wanting to believe something, turned into believing it. There was this idea that if you could truly surrender the future, you'd finally be clean. I remember walking past one of the meditation rooms one afternoon. Someone had drawn a line in chalk across the floor. Beside it, a single sentence, "There is nothing on the other side." And I stood there staring at it for maybe 20 minutes. Not because I didn't understand, but because I did. That was the point. Nothing on the other side. No goals, no timeline, no after. Just here, this step, this air, this room, forever. One night, I had a dream I was walking through a hallway made of calendars. Each date I passed would melt as I touched it. By the end, I was in a white room with no windows, no clocks, no doors. Just the word "now" written on the wall in giant letters. I woke up crying, but not out of fear, out of confusion. Because even in the dream I didn't know if I was free or trapped. After that, I stopped making plans in my head. I stopped thinking about birthdays, about seasons, about whether I'd ever leave. I threw away the mental timeline I used to carry. No more, maybe next month. No more, I wonder what it'll be like when, just now. And again, and again, and again. Somewhere along the way, I forgot what day of the week it was. I asked once, during a private lesson, "Is today Wednesday?" The answer was a slow blink. Then, "Does it matter?" And I said no. Because by then it didn't. No one tracked weekends. No one celebrated anything. Even meals blurred together. Not bad, not good, just neutral. There were no surprises, no countdowns, no 5 more days till. That part of me, the one that used to look ahead, had gone quiet. And with the future erased, something else followed. The past. If someone brought up childhood, memories, relationships, it was gently discouraged. Not shamed, just corrected. You're holding on. You're still assigning meaning. You're not here yet. If you remembered something good, you were addicted to nostalgia. If you remembered something painful, you were refusing to release. Either way, the message was the same. Let go. let go, let go, let go, until you had nothing left to let go of. There was a woman once, older than most, who told a story about her daughter during tea prep. She wasn't crying, just remembering. She said she used to hum when she cleaned the kitchen. Always the same song. And that's when one of the guides interrupted. Would you like help releasing that? Not with anger, not even judgment, just the assumption that if she remembered, she must be suffering. And maybe she was. But maybe she didn't want to let that go yet. Still, the next day, she was quieter. By the end of the week, she didn't speak at all, and no one asked why. There was comfort in that. No pressure to explain, no obligation to be known. We didn't need to remember birthdays, or plan futures, or mourn old dreams. We just did the task in front of us, one movement, one breath, one silence at a time. And the longer I lived like that, the easier it became to forget that time ever existed. At some point, I stopped counting, not just time, but people, moments, versions of myself. Everything became still, like standing in the middle of a frozen lake, the kind that doesn't crack, doesn't ripple, doesn't move, only reflects. That's what days felt like, not lived, just mirrored. We had this routine, always the same. Wake, Washington sit, breathe, repeat. Read the same passage until you stopped thinking about what it meant. Walk the same path until it didn't feel like movement. Listen, not to learn, but to dissolve. Every instruction we followed, every word repeated, wore down the edges of time. There was no before breakfast, no after cleaning, only, is the bell ringing yet? If it rang, we moved. If not, we waited. One morning, I stood at the edge of the garden, unsure whether I had just finished meditating or was about to begin. I looked around, trying to find a clue, but there was no one, only the wind. And in that moment I realized it didn't matter. What mattered was being still, doing the thing, not tracking it. The ritual was the life, not the timeline around it. Once someone asked, maybe by accident, "How long have you been here?" There was a pause, then laughter, but not the light kind, the hollow kind. Someone else said, "If you still need to know that, you're not ready." And I remember feeling ashamed, like I'd betrayed something, even just by wondering, so I stopped wondering. We all did. Nobody asked when someone had joined. Nobody asked where they were before. If someone disappeared, no questions. If someone returned, no welcome. Time made people into characters, and characters into stories. And stories were lies. That's what we were told. And after a while, we believed it. The past was a rope. The future was a trap. And memory? Just wait. So we dropped it. One thought at a time. One used to at a time. One what if at a time. Even names faded. We were given designations, numbers, traits, titles with no history. I was 88. Nothing before that mattered. No school, no family, no job, no friends. If anyone used your old name, even in kindness, they were corrected. Firmly, quietly, like adjusting posture. There was one moment I remember clearly, too clearly. A new member arrived, and I recognized him. We'd grown up in the same neighborhood. He looked at me and smiled like he'd seen a ghost come back to life, and said my old name, and I slapped him. Not hard, not violently, just automatically. Like my body had to reject what he'd said. I didn't plan it. I didn't think. I just felt panic. Like someone had poured hot water down my spine. I remember shouting, "That's not who I am anymore." And the look in his eyes, that flicker of something broken. I think he left the next day. And no one asked why. After that, I was praised. Not out loud, they never praised out loud. but someone passed me a better cushion the next morning, and I was allowed to sit closer to the inner ring. That's how you knew. The less you reacted, the more they noticed. The more you let go, the closer you got. We weren't ranked exactly, but some people were trusted to model stillness. They spoke less, moved slower, were given fewer tasks. It was a compliment to be ignored, a privilege to be invisible. And I started craving that. I didn't want to be asked things. I wanted to be assumed calm, assumed pure, assumed empty. There was this one girl, probably the youngest among us. She used to cry at night quietly, never loud, just enough for the room to feel it. And I hated it, not because she was weak, but because it pulled me back. It reminded me of time, of grief, of family. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, praying, not to any god, just to the silence itself, that she would stop. Eventually, she did. Or maybe she left. Or maybe I just stopped hearing her. Either way, the stillness returned. And I was grateful. It wasn't just about removing time. It was about removing patterns. No cycles, no stages, no arcs, just flat. The same thoughts every day. Until even thoughts stopped arriving. There was a room called the mirror cell. It wasn't part of the regular program. You had to earn access. It was white, no windows, a mirror on every wall. You were supposed to sit in the middle and stare, not at yourself, but past yourself. To see the self watching the self. I got to go in once, and I sat there for hours, I think, watching my reflection until it didn't look like me, until it didn't blink when I did, until I couldn't remember which side of the mirror I was on. When I came out, someone asked, "What did you see?" And I said, "Nothing that needed to be kept." They nodded. That was the right answer. There was no day off, no Sunday, no holiday, no end of anything. Even the word week sounded alien after a while, like a shape I used to fit into but now couldn't even picture. You woke up, you breathed, you listened, you obeyed. And that was enough. It was supposed to be. Sometimes I tried to mark the passing days secretly, just to see. I'd fold a corner of my blanket, place a small pebble near the edge of my mat, draw a tiny dot inside my book's back cover. But then I'd forget why I did it, or what the mark meant or when it started. Eventually, I'd remove it. Not out of fear, just because it didn't belong. It felt noisy, like dragging mud into a room that had been swept 1,000 times. Once, I had a dream. I was sitting in a room full of clocks, each one ticking in a different rhythm, louder and louder, until it turned into a scream I couldn't hear but could feel in my ribs. And then they all stopped, and someone said, "Now you're free." I woke up sweating and smiled, because I believed it. No one told us what time it was, but somehow our bodies learned when to move, when to still, when to disappear into the group so fully that even your breath synchronized with the silence around you. Someone asked, in a whisper, "What day is it?" No one answered. The question just fell between us like a glass breaking, and no one moved to clean it up. I forgot my age. It didn't happen in a dramatic moment. There was no gasping, no shock. Just one afternoon, someone said, "You're probably around." And I realized I didn't know, didn't want to, felt relief not knowing. Because numbers meant tracking. Tracking meant movement, and movement meant escape. And I didn't want to escape anymore. I began to forget what waiting felt like. There was nothing to wait for. No event, no visit, no message, no season. Rain came, rain went, leaves changed. We didn't. Festivals passed somewhere else, but not here. I saw someone writing once, just silently mouthing words as he wrote into his little book. One of the elders walked by, stopped, and asked, "Are those your words, or just echoes?" He froze, closed the book, didn't write again. I never wrote anything personal after that, not because I was scared, but because maybe I didn't have anything to say. Nothing that wasn't already said better in the group mantras. Nothing that needed to be preserved. Because if there's no past, what's the point of documenting it? The future was never forbidden. That would have made it tempting. It was just made irrelevant. Whenever someone said soon, we were reminded, there is no soon. There's only now. Whenever someone said, I hope, they were gently corrected, hope is hunger. Let go. And so, we stopped. We stopped wanting, stopped planning, stopped drawing lines into a tomorrow that didn't exist. I threw away the notebook I once used to write dreams. One page had, open a cafe near a lake. Another, learn to play guitar. One just said, visit Iceland with Dad. I ripped them out, burned them quietly. And with each flicker of flame, something loosened inside me. Not in a painful way, in a clean way. Like unclenching a fist you didn't realize had been tight for years. Every once in a while, a breeze would carry sounds from the outside. Laughter, a radio, church bells. It felt like fiction, like the memory of someone else's life. And I would close my eyes, not to block it out, but to stop remembering what it used to mean. There was a phrase we repeated often. If time has no grip on me, nothing else can either. It made sense after a while. Total sense. No memories equals no guilt. No plans equals no fear. No timeline equals no expectation. No expectation equals no pain. One night, I stared at the ceiling and realized I couldn't tell if it was morning or evening. Didn't matter. My body didn't ache for change. My mind didn't wander. My heart didn't pull. I was flat, not numb, not dead, just flat. Like the surface of a still pond before a single thought breaks it. Someone asked, what do you miss most? And I couldn't answer. Not because I was hiding anything, but because I genuinely couldn't remember what it felt like to miss something. Even longing had been erased. And then one evening, I heard someone say, I don't remember who I was. And I thought, good, that means you're almost clean. But then, I realized I had no idea when I had last said anything at all. And that scared me. Not because I missed my voice, but because silence had become so normal that speaking felt unnecessary, optional, like color in a world of grayscale. I don't know how long I was there, maybe a week, maybe a year, or maybe my whole life. Because if there is no time, there are no boundaries, and I still don't know when exactly I started to disappear. Maybe I'm still there.